Ambassador Ziegler stepped off his ship and onto Earth with confidence. He had done this 847 times before on 847 different worlds. The pattern never changed. Show up, make contact, offer protection, accept submission. Simple, efficient. The way the galaxy had worked for thousands of years. The humans had built a landing pad for him in a place they called Geneva. Thousands of them gathered to watch, their faces showing curiosity and excitement. Ziegler felt a flicker of satisfaction. They looked appropriately impressed by his ship, by his ceremonial armor, by the display of Vrelian power. The human leaders met him with smiles and handshakes. They seemed friendly enough. Primitive, but friendly. Their translator devices were crude, but functional. Ziegler delivered his standard speech about the Galactic Council, about the benefits of joining galactic civilization, about the protection the Vrelian Empire could offer to such a young species. The human president, a woman with gray hair and steady eyes, listened carefully. Then she smiled and said something Ziegler had only heard 3 times in his entire career. "Thank you for your generous offer, Ambassador. But we must respectfully decline." Ziegler felt his confidence waver. The 3 species who had declined his offer had all eventually accepted after a demonstration. The Vrelians had learned long ago that young species needed to understand the reality of galactic power. It was for their own good, really. Better to learn early than to make mistakes later. "Perhaps you don't understand," Ziegler said, keeping his voice gentle. "The galaxy is a dangerous place. Without protection, your species is vulnerable. We only want to help you." "We understand perfectly," the president replied, "and we appreciate your concern. But humanity has always determined its own path. We're not ready to accept anyone's protection." Ziegler left Earth disappointed but not surprised. He made his report to the Vrelian High Command. They approved the standard response. A demonstration of force. Nothing that would actually harm the humans. Just a reminder of what existed beyond their little world. The Vrelian fleet destroyed the human colony on Mars. It was empty. Abandoned years ago according to their scans. Perfect for a demonstration. The base vanished in a flash of plasma fire, leaving nothing but scattered debris and a clear message. Ziegler expected the humans would call within days, ready to reconsider. That's what always happened. Instead, 72 hours later, 3 Vrelian warships went silent. The first ship, the Pride of Vrelia, stopped responding to communications while on patrol near Jupiter. The second ship, sent to investigate, reported finding the Pride intact but drifting. Then it went silent too. The third ship approached with weapons ready and shields set. Maximum dot it lasted 6 minutes before its distress call cut. Off. The Vrelian High Command was stunned. Confused. This wasn't supposed to happen. Young species didn't have the technology to threaten capital ships. They barely had faster-than-light travel. Ziegler found himself back in Geneva 2 weeks later, this time without confidence. The human president met him again, but this time she wasn't smiling. "We tried to be polite," she said. "We tried to be civil. You destroyed our colony. Did you think we would just accept that? What did you do to our ships?" Ziegler demanded, his diplomatic composure cracking. "Where are our people?" "Your people are alive, mostly. They're currently receiving medical treatment for severe psychological trauma. You'll get them back when we're satisfied that you understand the situation. You attacked Vrelian ships. The Council will do nothing," the president interrupted. "Because we didn't attack your ships, Ambassador. We boarded them. Your crews never saw us coming. Your weapons never had a chance to fire. Your shields might as well have been made of paper." Ziegler felt something he hadn't felt in decades. Fear. "We have records of every war humanity has fought," the president continued. 10,000 years of killing each other in increasingly creative ways. Do you know what we learned in all that time? We learned that there are no rules in war. No honor, no mercy. Only winners and losers. The galaxy has laws, Jigthar said weakly. Conventions. Standards of warfare. Your conventions assume both sides agree to follow them. We never agreed to anything. The president leaned forward. You want to know what we did to your crews? We hacked into their ship systems and made them think they were dying. We made them hear things that weren't there. See things that couldn't exist. We played with their minds until they broke. And we did it because you thought you could frighten us into submission. This is barbaric. This is human. The president's eyes were cold now. You came to our world and tried to make us afraid. Congratulations, Ambassador. You succeeded. But you made a mistake. You assumed that fear would make us weak. Instead, it made us dangerous. The Galactic Council convened an emergency session after Jigthar's report. An investigation fleet of 20 ships was dispatched to retrieve the missing Vrelian vessels and their crews. They found the ships drifting in Earth's orbit. The hulls were intact. The systems were undamaged. But the crews were broken. Of the 3,000 Vrelians aboard those 3 ships, only 200 were conscious. The rest were catatonic, staring at nothing, responding to nothing. The investigation team found messages written throughout the ships. In the command center. In the engine rooms. In the crew quarters. Written in Vrelian blood, in a language the translators identified as English. We tried to be civil. The message was always the same. Over and over. Hundreds of times. But it was the final message, written on the bridge of the Pride of Vrelia, that made the investigation team truly afraid. It was written in perfect galactic standard, the trade language used throughout known space. You tried to frighten us. Now you know what it feels like. This is your only warning. Leave us alone, or discover what humanity becomes when we stop being nice. The Council received the investigation report in silence. For the first time in galactic history, a species had rejected Council authority and survived. More than survived. They had made the Vrelian Empire the most powerful military force in the galaxy look weak. Debates raged across the Council chambers. Some argued for immediate quarantine. Others wanted diplomacy. But the Vrelians had been humiliated in front of the entire galaxy. They couldn't let this stand. High Commander Velmoth addressed the Council with rage in his voice. These humans have violated every standard of civilized warfare. They have tortured our people. They have rejected our authority. This cannot be tolerated. What do you propose? Asked the Council Speaker. War, Velmoth said simply. Total war. We mobilize the full strength of the Vrelian fleet. We reduce Earth to ruins. We show the galaxy what happens when a primitive species dares to challenge us. The vote was close, but fear won over caution. The Council authorized military action. The Vrelian Empire began gathering the largest battle fleet assembled in 400 years of galactic peace. 300 ships. Enough firepower to crack a planet's crust. Enough soldiers to occupy a dozen worlds. All heading toward one small blue world on the edge of the galaxy. On Earth, humanity watched the fleet gather and prepare. The human president called an emergency meeting with her military advisors. Can we win? She asked. The general in charge of Earth's defense looked at the tactical displays. 300 ships against Earth's 50. Overwhelming odds by any calculation. Depends on what you mean by win, he said. Can we destroy their fleet? Probably. Can't we do it without becoming exactly what they think we are? That's the real question. The president was quiet for a long moment. Then she made her decision. Prepare everything, she said. If they want to see monsters, we'll show them monsters. But make sure every action is recorded. Every decision documented. When this is over, I want the galaxy to know exactly who started this war and who tried to stop it. The Vrelian fleet began its journey toward Earth. In the ship's soldiers prepared for victory. They had superior numbers, superior experience, and 400 years of military tradition. What they didn't have was any understanding of what humanity had, learned in 10,000 years of warfare. The battle would begin in 3 weeks. The galaxy held its breath and waited. The Vrelian fleet dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of Earth's solar system. High Commander Velmoth stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching the tactical displays with satisfaction. 300 ships arranged in perfect formation. Everything according to doctrine. Everything by the book. Begin the advance, he ordered. Standard battle formation. When we reach Earth's orbit, we destroy their military installations. Leave the planet itself intact. We want them alive to serve as an example. The fleet moved forward, shields up, weapons charged. They expected resistance. They expected humanity's 50 ships to meet them in battle. What they got instead was silence. Earth's defense fleet wasn't moving. The ships hung in orbit, seemingly waiting. It made no tactical sense. They're not running, Velmoth's tactical officer observed. Why aren't they running? Pride, Velmoth said. Foolish, primitive pride. They actually think they can win. Then the first ship started experiencing problems. The Warrior's Honor reported that its navigation systems were showing incorrect readings. Then its weapons targeting went offline. Then life support began fluctuating. The ship's captain reported that every system was failing one by one, and they couldn't determine why. Get engineering teams on it, Velmoth ordered. It's probably just a malfunction from the long journey. But then, more ships reported similar issues. 5 ships, 10, 20. Systems failing across the fleet with no apparent cause. Engineers worked frantically, but found nothing wrong with the hardware. Everything looked fine. Everything tested normal until it didn't. The Warrior's Honor suddenly fired on the ship next to it. The captain screamed over the communications that he wasn't giving that order, that his weapons were firing on their own. 2 more ships opened fire on their neighbors. Chaos rippled through the formation as ships scattered to avoid friendly fire. What is happening? Velmoth demanded. Commander, we're detecting unauthorized access in our computer networks. His technical officer reported, his voice shaking. Someone is in our systems. They're in all our systems. That's impossible. Our networks are isolated. Each ship is independent. They're using our own communication systems against us, the officer explained. Every time we talk to each other, they slip deeper into our networks. It's like nothing I've ever seen. The code is rewriting itself faster than we can block it. Velmoth felt ice in his veins. Cut all communications. Every ship operates independently. Sir, if we do that, we lose all coordination. We do it. The fleet went silent. 300 ships suddenly alone, unable to coordinate, unable to work together. Velmoth watched his perfect formation fall apart into isolated vessels. That's when the human ships moved. They didn't charge forward in a glorious attack. They didn't follow any formation the Vrelians recognized. Instead, they scattered like insects, moving in patterns that made no sense. Some flew straight at the Vrelian fleet. Others angled away. Some went up, some went down. There was no order to it, no structure. It was chaos. And chaos, Velmoth was learning, was a human specialty. The human ships were smaller and faster than the Vrelian vessels. They darted between the larger ships, firing weapons that seemed designed to disable rather than destroy. Electromagnetic pulses knocked out shields. Kinetic projectiles tore through armor without exploding. Strange missiles attached to Vrelian hulls and began cutting through the metal. "They're boarding us!" came the panicked report from a dozen ships at once. Velmoth couldn't respond. His communications were cut. He could only watch on his tactical display as ship after ship went dark or started firing, randomly or simply stopped moving. Then his own ship shuddered. Something had attached to the hull. Alarms blared throughout the vessel. "Hull breach on Deck 7, his security chief reported. "Intruders aboard. Sending security teams." The security teams never made it. The humans had released some kind of gas into the ventilation system. Not poison, something worse. Something that made the Vrelian soldiers see things that weren't there. The security chief reported his teams were fighting enemies that didn't exist, shooting at shadows and ghosts. Velmoth ran to the armory and grabbed a weapon. If the humans wanted his ship, they would have to go through him. The bridge doors exploded inward. Not from explosives, but from some kind of cutting tool that melted through the reinforced metal like it was paper. Smoke poured in. Velmoth raised his weapon, ready to fight. A human walked through the smoke dot. Just one human. No armor, no visible weapons. A woman in a simple black uniform with a patch that read UNSC Special Operations on her shoulder. "Drop the weapon, Commander," she said in perfect Vrelian. "You've already lost. One human against my entire bridge crew?" Velmoth laughed, though fear made his voice shake. "You're insane. Look at your crew, Commander." Velmoth glanced around. His bridge officers were slumped in their seats, unconscious. Gas, he realized. While he was focused on the door, they had released more gas. He was the only one still awake. "How?" he whispered. "We have filters in our lungs," the human said calmly. "Biological modifications. You never thought to scan for that, did you? You were so focused on our ships and weapons, you forgot to consider what we might have done to ourselves. This is barbaric. Modifying your own bodies for war? This is survival." The human stepped closer. "You brought 300 ships to destroy our home. Did you think we would fight fair? There are rules, conventions. Your rules, your conventions. We never agreed to them." The human pulled out a datapad and showed him a display. Ship after ship in the Vrelian fleet was either disabled or under human control. In 14 hours, the largest military operation in 400 years had been completely dismantled. "What will you do with us?" Velmoth asked, his weapon falling from his hands. "That depends on you," the human said. "Your crews are alive. Traumatized, terrified, but alive. We could have killed everyone. We have weapons you can't imagine. Biological agents that could wipe out your entire species. Nanomachines that could dissolve your ships from the inside. Nuclear weapons that could crack planets. We've spent 10,000 years learning to kill each other. Do you understand what that means?" Velmoth understood. Humanity had turned warfare into an art form, into a science, into something so advanced that the Vrelians looked like children playing with toys. "You're going to kill us," he said quietly. "No." The human's answer surprised him. "We're going to send you home. Every ship, every crew member. We want the galaxy to see what happened here. We want them to know that we could have killed you all, but we chose not to. Why? Because monsters are made, not born," the human said. "You tried to make us into monsters by attacking our colony, by bringing your fleet to destroy our home. And yes, we showed you we can be monsters. But we're choosing not to be. We're choosing to show you that there's another way." The human pressed a button on her datapad. Throughout the Vrelian fleet, captured ships began powering down. Human boarding teams withdrew. Disabled systems came back online. "You're letting us go?" Velmoth couldn't believe it. "With a message. Tell the Council that Earth offers peace. Real peace, not submission. We'll share our technology, our knowledge, our resources. But as equals, not as subjects. If the Council refuses, if they send another fleet, we won't be so merciful next time." The human turned to leave, then paused. "Oh, and Commander? We've left a little present in all your ship's computer systems. Nothing harmful. Just a program that will activate if anyone attacks Earth again. Consider it insurance." Within 48 hours, the Vrelian fleet limped back to Council space. Not a single ship destroyed. Not a single life lost. But 3,000 soldiers who had seen what humanity could do. 3,000 witnesses to a new kind of warfare. The Council convened again. This time in shock rather than confidence. They defeated the Vrelian fleet without killing anyone, the Council speaker said slowly. They could have destroyed everything but chose mercy instead. "It's a trick," Velmoth insisted, standing before the Council to give his report. "They're manipulating us, making us think they're peaceful so we lower our guard." "Or," said a voice from the back of the chamber, "they're showing us what they could be if we treat them as friends instead of enemies." A human delegation had arrived at the Council station. Not warriors this time, but diplomats, scientists, teachers. They carried no weapons. They made no threats. They simply asked to speak. The Council, still reeling from the Vrelian defeat, had no choice but to listen. The lead human diplomat, an older man with kind eyes, addressed the Council. "We know what you think of us, barbarians, savages, too violent for civilized space. And you're not entirely wrong. We are violent. We are dangerous. But we're also more than that." He gestured to his delegation. "We're teachers who want to share knowledge. Scientists who want to solve problems. Doctors who want to heal the sick. Artists who want to create beauty. Yes, we can be monsters. You've seen that. But we can also be the best version of ourselves if you give us the chance." "You humiliated the Vrelian Empire," one council member accused. "You made us all look weak." "We defended ourselves," the diplomat replied. "Nothing more. You attacked us first, remember? We're simply asking to be left alone, or better yet, to be welcomed as equals." The council was divided. Some species wanted to accept humanity's offer. Others feared them too much. And a small group, those who benefited most from the old system of client species and subjugation, began plotting in the shadows. They couldn't accept a galaxy where humanity existed as equals. It would upset everything, change the balance of power that existed for millennia. So they began planning. Not an open attack this time. Something quieter. Something permanent? A weapon that would end the human problem forever. The conspiracy began in the shadows of the council chambers. 12 species gathered in secret, led by the Krathiks, an old race that had dominated galactic trade for 3,000 years. They met in encrypted channels, their communications hidden behind layers of security. "Humanity must be removed," said Eldo Krathik's Prime Minister Sevenok. "Not through war. We've seen how that ends. But through science. A plague?" asked one of the other conspirators. "Precisely. A biological weapon that targets human DNA specifically. Their own modifications make them vulnerable. They've changed themselves so much that a properly designed virus could sweep through their entire species in weeks." The conspiracy worked in secret for months. They gathered human genetic samples from diplomatic meetings, from trade exchanges, from medical databases. They built laboratories in hidden stations. They hired scientists who asked no questions. Meanwhile, humanity continued their strange campaign across the galaxy. Human medical teams arrived on Telos 4, a world suffering from a plague that had killed millions. The local government hadn't asked for help. The council hadn't authorized intervention. The humans simply showed up with supplies and knowledge. Dr. Sarah Chen led the medical team. She was a small woman with tired eyes and gentle hands. She worked 20-hour days treating the sick, teaching local doctors, distributing medicine. The Telosian people watched in confusion. Why would these dangerous humans help them? Because people are dying, Sarah said simply when asked. We have the knowledge to help. Why wouldn't we? In 3 months, the plague on Telos 4 was contained. The death rate dropped from thousands per day to 0. The Telosian government offered payment, resources, anything the humans wanted. We don't want payment, Sarah said. We want you to remember that humanity helped when no one else did. Similar stories played out across the galaxy. Human engineers solved a critical power shortage on the colony world of New Petra. Human teachers established free schools on frontier stations. Human farmers introduced new agricultural techniques that doubled crop yields on struggling worlds. The galaxy watched in confusion and growing wonder. These were the same humans who had dismantled the Vrelian fleet. The same humans who had psychological weapons that could break minds. Yet here they were, helping anyone who needed it. It's a strategy, the conspirators insisted. They're making themselves indispensable so we can't act against them. But some council members began to doubt. Maybe humanity was exactly what they claimed to be. Dangerous when threatened, helpful when welcomed. The bioweapon was completed in secret. A virus that would target human genetic markers, spread through the air, remained dormant for weeks before activating. By the time symptoms appeared, it would be too late. Every human in the galaxy would be infected. The conspirators prepared to deploy it at a diplomatic conference, where human representatives would be present. The virus would spread from there to Earth, to human colonies, to human ships. Within a year, humanity would be extinct. Then the conspiracy fell apart in the most unexpected way. One of the conspirator species, the Valens, had a junior scientist named Cora working on the bioweapon project. She was young, idealistic, and increasingly troubled by what she was doing. She had been told the project was defensive, a deterrent against human aggression. But when she ran the final simulations, she saw the truth. This wasn't a deterrent. It was genocide. Cora had met a human before, a teacher named James, who had come to her world to establish a cultural exchange program. He had taught her about human art, human music, human philosophy. He had been kind to her, patient with her questions, enthusiastic about her own culture. She thought about James dying from the virus she helped create. She thought about all the humans who had helped her people, dying because of her work. She made her choice. Cora stole the research data and fled to the nearest human embassy. She arrived terrified, expecting to be interrogated or punished. Instead, a human security officer gave her water and a blanket and listened to her story. "I'm sorry," Cora said, crying. "I didn't know what they were planning. I thought we were defending ourselves." "It's okay," the security officer said gently. "You made the right choice. You're safe now." The data Cora provided revealed everything. The conspiracy, the weapon, the planned deployment. The human ambassador immediately contacted the council with the evidence. The galaxy held its breath again. This was it. The moment when humanity would show their true nature. They had been betrayed, targeted for extinction. Surely now they would unleash their full military might. A human battle fleet appeared in orbit around each conspirator homeworld within 24 hours. Enough firepower to level cities. Enough troops to occupy planets. The conspirators prepared for the worst. The human fleet sent a single transmission to each world. "We know what you planned. We know you tried to kill us all. We're here to make sure you understand something very important. We could end your species right now. We could do to you what you tried to do to us. But we won't, because that's not who we choose to be." On each conspirator world, human teams descended not with weapons, but with evidence. They broadcast the conspiracy details to the public. They showed the bioweapon designs. They revealed how their leaders had planned genocide in secret. The conspirator governments fell apart not from human military action, but from their own people rising up in horror and shame. Citizens who hadn't known about the conspiracy, who were appalled that their leaders had planned such evil. The human fleet remained in orbit, while the conspirator worlds held emergency elections, formed new governments, and prosecuted the conspirators. Through it all, the humans stayed neutral, protecting but not controlling. Elder Sevenak was arrested by his own people. As they led him away, he saw human soldiers standing guard outside the courthouse. They didn't gloat. They didn't threaten. They simply stood watch, making sure the trial was fair. Why? Sevenak asked one of them. We tried to exterminate you. Why show mercy? The human soldier, a young man with old eyes, looked at him thoughtfully. Because monsters are made, not born. You became a monster when you decided we were too dangerous to exist. You tried to make us into monsters by forcing us to choose between extinction and revenge. But we're choosing a third option. We're choosing to show you that there's another way. You're fools, Sevenak spat. Mercy is weakness. No, the soldier said. Mercy is strength. It takes no courage to kill your enemies. It takes real strength to give them a chance to become something better. The trials proceeded. The conspirators were sentenced not by human courts, but by their own people. The punishment wasn't death, but exile and labor. They would spend the rest of their lives helping to undo the damage they'd tried to cause. The Galactic Council convened yet again, this time with a very different atmosphere. The human ambassador addressed them once more. We've shown you twice now what we are capable of, she said. We destroyed the Vrelian fleet without killing anyone. We stopped a genocide without committing one in return. We're not asking for your gratitude. We're asking for you to make a choice. What choice? The council speaker asked. The choice to build a galaxy based on cooperation instead of domination. The old system, where strong species control weak ones, where client species serve their patrons, where fear keeps everyone in line. That system created us. You made us into weapons by treating us like enemies. Now we're asking you to see what we could become if you treated us like friends. The galaxy fractured in response. Some species embraced humanity's vision. Others rejected it, clinging to the old ways. A few, those who had benefited most from the old system, began to organize opposition. The Restoration Coalition formed quickly. 40 species united under a single banner with a single demand. Humanity must withdraw from galactic affairs and return to their home system. If they refused, the coalition would enforce isolation through military action. They issued their ultimatum expecting humanity to fight, expecting another demonstration of human military superiority, expecting war. Instead, humanity surprised everyone one more time. We accept your terms, the human ambassador announced to a stunned council. Humanity will withdraw from all non-human worlds. We'll recall our medical teams, our engineers, our teachers. We'll cease all trade with coalition members. We'll return to Earth and leave you alone. You're surrendering? The coalition spokesman asked, unable to hide his surprise. We're respecting your choice, the ambassador replied. You've made it clear you don't want us here. We won't force our presence on anyone. Goodbye. Within a month, every human presence outside Earth's solar system was gone. The medical teams left their hospitals. The engineers left their projects half-finished. The teachers closed their schools. Human trade ships stopped arriving at coalition ports. The coalition celebrated their victory. They had pushed back the human threat without firing a shot. But on the worlds humanity had helped, people began to notice what was missing. The plague on Telos 4 started spreading again without human doctors. The power grid on New Petra began failing without human engineers. The schools on frontier stations closed without human teachers, and the species that had gained independence with human support, the former client worlds that had tasted freedom, they refused to return to the old system. The rebellion began not with human instigation, but with the species humanity had helped. They remembered what civilization could be. They had seen an alternative to the old system of domination and submission. They wanted that future. Even if humanity was gone, the Restoration Coalition found itself facing not human weapons, but human ideas. And ideas, they discovered, were far more dangerous than any fleet. The rebellion started small. A strike on Talos 4 by medical workers who refused to return to the old inadequate practices. A protest on New Petra demanding the return of human engineers. Students on frontier stations occupying government buildings and demanding their schools reopen. The Restoration Coalition tried to suppress the uprisings. They sent peacekeepers, imposed curfews, made arrests. But the rebellions only grew larger. This is human manipulation. The coalition leadership insisted. They planted these ideas deliberately to destabilize us. But there were no human agents provocateurs. No human funding for the rebels. No human weapons or supplies. The humans had truly withdrawn, staying in their solar system exactly as demanded. The rebels were acting on their own, fighting for a vision of the galaxy they had glimpsed during humanity's brief presence. On Talos 4, Dr. Sarah Chen watched the news feeds from her apartment on Earth. She saw Talosian doctors protesting in the streets, holding signs that read, "We learned from the best. Now let us practice." She saw patients dying from the return plague, and she wept. "We should go back," she told her government. "They need us." "We can't," her superior replied. "We gave our word. We said we would withdraw, and we did. If we return now, the coalition will say we were lying all along. So, we just watch them die? We watch them choose. That's all we can do." The coalition began to fracture. Some member species faced full-scale civil wars. Others saw their economies collapse without human trade. Still others watched their populations demand reforms that matched what humanity had offered. The Vrelian Empire, humiliated twice by humanity, found itself in an unexpected position. Their people, seeing the chaos in coalition space, began asking questions. Why had their government attacked Earth? Why had they rejected humanity's offer of peaceful cooperation? High Commander Velmoth, now retired and disgraced, gave an interview that shocked the galaxy. "I was wrong," he admitted publicly. "I thought humanity was a threat because they were different, because they fought in ways we didn't understand, because they refused to submit to our authority. But the real threat wasn't humanity. It was our own arrogance." The interview spread across the galaxy. A Vrelian military commander admitting his mistake, praising the humans who had defeated him. "They could have killed us all," Velmoth said. "They had the weapons, the opportunity, the justification. We had destroyed their colony. We had brought a fleet to annihilate their world. But they chose mercy. They showed us that strength isn't about domination. It's about choosing not to use your power to hurt others." The coalition leadership called an emergency meeting. They were losing control. Member species were defecting. Public opinion was turning against them. And through it all, humanity remained silent and absent. "We need to force them to act," one coalition leader suggested. "If we attack Earth directly, they'll have to fight back. Then we can show the galaxy that they're the warmongers we always said they were. And if we lose?" Another asked, "We won't. We have 40 species, thousands of ships. Even humanity can't stand against that." But others weren't so sure. The Vrelians had thought 300 ships would be enough. They had been wrong. Before the coalition could make a decision, something unexpected happened. The Violins, one of the original conspirator species, withdrew from the coalition. Their new government, elected after the bioweapon scandal, issued a public apology to humanity and requested to open diplomatic relations. "We were wrong to fear you," the Valen Prime Minister announced. "We were wrong to try to destroy you. We ask for forgiveness and the chance to start again." The human response came within hours, not from the government, but from a private citizen. James, the teacher who had befriended Cora, sent a personal message. "There's nothing to forgive. Cora saved us by choosing courage over fear. That's all we ever wanted from the galaxy. The courage to choose peace over fear." The Valen withdrawal triggered a cascade. Other coalition members began reconsidering their position. If the Valens could admit they were wrong and survive, maybe others could too. The coalition found itself reduced from 40 species to 30, then to 20, then to just 10. The holdouts were the species who had the most to lose from a more equal galaxy. The old powers who had grown rich from client species and one-sided trade. They made their decision. If they couldn't maintain the old order, they would force a new war and hope humanity would return to the villains they needed them to be. A coalition fleet of 500 ships entered Earth's solar system. They came with weapons armed and shields up. They broadcast their demands. Humanity must submit to council authority or face destruction. The human defense fleet moved to intercept. 50 ships against 500. The same overwhelming odds as before. But this time, something different happened. Ships began arriving from across the galaxy. Not human ships. Telosian medical vessels. Valen cargo haulers. New Petran mining ships. Dozens of species that humanity had helped, coming to help in return. They weren't warships. They had no weapons. But they positioned themselves between Earth and the coalition fleet. "You'll have to go through us first," the Telosian captain broadcast. "Humanity saved our world. We won't abandon them." The coalition commander found himself in an impossible position. Fire on unarmed civilian ships? That would make the coalition the villains. Withdraw? That would be admitting defeat. While he hesitated, more ships arrived. Human allies from across the galaxy. Former client species that had gained independence. Worlds that had benefited from human help. They came by the hundreds, all unarmed, all placing themselves in harm's way. Then the Vrelian Empire's fleet arrived. High Commander Velmoth had come out of retirement for this moment. His ships took position alongside the human defense fleet. "The Vrelian Empire stands with Earth," he broadcast. "We will not allow another mistake. We will not allow fear to drive us to commit genocide. If you want to attack Earth, you'll have to destroy us first." The coalition commander knew he had lost. Even if he won the battle, he would lose the war. The galaxy had chosen, not through human weapons or human manipulation, but through their own free will. The coalition fleet withdrew. Within a week, the Restoration Coalition dissolved completely. The species that had formed, it faced internal pressures to reform, to adapt, to join the new order that was forming. The Galactic Council convened one final time to restructure itself. The old system of patron species and client worlds was abolished. Every species, regardless of size or power, would have an equal voice. The human ambassador stood before the new council for the last time in her official capacity. "We never wanted to rule you," she said. "We never wanted to force you to change. We only wanted the chance to show you what was possible. You've seen what we are. We're capable of great violence. We can be monsters when we need to be. But we're also capable of great compassion. We can be healers, teachers, friends." She paused, looking around at the assembled species. "The choice was never about us. It was always about you. Would you choose fear or hope? Would you choose domination or cooperation? Would you let your fear of what we might be stop you from seeing what we actually are? The council speaker, now elected rather than appointed by the old powers, addressed the assembly. Humanity showed us that power doesn't have to corrupt, that the strong can choose to help the weak instead of controlling them. That mercy isn't weakness. We tried to make them into monsters, and they refused. They showed us we could be better. All of us. 5 years later, the galaxy had transformed. The old hierarchies were gone. Species once considered primitive now contributed equally to galactic civilization. Trade was fair and open. Medical knowledge was shared freely. Technology was collaborative rather than hoarded. Dr. Sarah Chun returned to Telos 4, not as a savior, but as a colleague. She worked alongside Telosian doctors she had trained, learning from them as they learned from her. The plague was gone, but new challenges remained. They faced them together. James, the teacher, ran an exchange program that brought young beings from 100 species to Earth and sent human students across the galaxy. The students learned that differences weren't threats, but opportunities. High Commander Velmoth became an ambassador for the Vrelian Empire. He traveled the galaxy giving speeches about the lessons of humility and the importance of admitting mistakes. And Cora, the scientist who had saved humanity, worked in a joint human-Valen research facility. She was developing medical treatments, not weapons. Creating life, not destroying it. On Earth, in a park overlooking the ocean, a monument was built. It showed a human and an alien reaching toward each other. The inscription read, "Monsters are made, not born. So are heroes. The choice is ours." Tourists from across the galaxy visited the monument. They took pictures. They told their children about the wars that almost were, the destruction that almost happened, and the choice that changed everything. A young Vrelian child asked his parent, "Were the humans really monsters?" The parent, who had lived through the wars, thought carefully before answering. They could have been. They had the power. They had the reasons. We gave them every excuse to hate us. But they chose not to be. That's what makes them special. Not their weapons or their technology, but their choice. Can anyone make that choice? The child asked. Yes, the parent said, looking at the monument. That's the point. We can all choose what we become. The humans just showed us it was possible. In orbit around Earth, a new space station floated among the stars. The Unity Station built by 100 species working together. Humans and Vrelians. Telosians and Valens. Former enemies, now friends. In the station's central hub, children of different species played together. They didn't see differences as threats. They saw them as interesting.